David and Goliath, the giant who fell before faith. A powerful Bible story for today's generation. What if I told you that one of the greatest victories in history was won by a teenager? Not a king, not a trained soldier, not a famous warrior. Just a shepherd boy with a sling, 5 stones, and an unshakable faith in God. This is the story of David and Goliath, one of the most famous stories in the Bible. But this isn't just an ancient story. It's a story about courage, faith, fear, and the battles every person faces in life. Chapter 1, The Valley of Fear. Thousands of years ago, a war was taking place between Israel and the Philistines. The two armies stood on opposite hills in the Valley of Elah. Israel's army occupied one side. The Philistine army occupied the other. Between them was a wide valley where the battle would be fought. But something strange was happening. No one was fighting. Both armies were waiting. Both armies were afraid. Because the Philistines had a secret weapon. His name was Goliath. Chapter 2. The giant Goliath was unlike any warrior anyone had ever seen. He stood over 9 feet tall. His armor weighed more than many men could carry. His spear looked like a small tree. His sword was massive. Every morning he walked into the valley and shouted toward the Israelites, "Choose a man to fight me. If he defeats me, we will serve you. But if I defeat him, you will serve us." His voice echoed through the mountains, and every day fear spread through the camp of Israel. Chapter 3, 40 Days of Terror. 1 day passed, then another, then a week, then 2 weeks, then an entire month. For 40 days, Goliath repeated the same challenge. For 40 days, nobody answered. Even King Saul was afraid. The strongest warriors in Israel stayed silent. The giant seemed unbeatable. The people began to believe that defeat was inevitable. Fear had become stronger than their faith. Chapter 4. A shepherd boy arrives. Far away in Bethlehem lived a young shepherd named David. He was the youngest son in his family. While his brothers served in the army, David spent his days caring for sheep. He wasn't famous. He wasn't powerful. He wasn't a soldier. But David had something that many warriors lacked. He trusted God completely. One day his father asked him to bring food to his brothers at the battlefield. David obeyed and traveled to the camp. He had no idea that his life was about to change forever. Chapter 5. The Challenge. As David arrived, he heard a loud voice echoing across the valley. It was Goliath. Again, the giant was mocking Israel. Again, soldiers were backing away in fear. David looked around in disbelief. "Why is no one doing anything?" he asked. The soldiers explained who Goliath was and how everyone feared him. But David saw the situation differently. Everyone else saw a giant. David saw an opportunity for God to show his power. Chapter 6. A different perspective. Fear changes the way people think. The soldiers saw Goliath and thought, "He's too big to fight." David saw Goliath and thought, "He's too big to miss." While others focused on the size of the enemy, David focused on the greatness of God. He couldn't understand why anyone would allow this giant to insult the people of God. Something stirred inside him. He knew someone had to stand up. Chapter 7. Before King Saul. David was brought before King Saul. The king looked at the young shepherd and shook his head. "You are only a boy," Saul said. "Goliath has been a warrior since his youth." But David answered confidently, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear attacked the flock, I went after it. I rescued the sheep. And when the animal attacked me, God helped me defeat it. The same God who delivered me from the lion and the bear will deliver me from this Philistine." Saul could see that David's confidence was real. Finally, he gave permission. Chapter 8. The armor that didn't fit King. Saul offered David his royal armor. The soldiers dressed him in the king's equipment, but it was too heavy, too uncomfortable, too unfamiliar. David could barely move, so he took it off. "I cannot fight in these," he said. David understood something important. God had already prepared him with the gifts he needed. He didn't need to become someone else. He needed to be the person God created him to be. Chapter 9. 5 Smooth Stones. David walked to a nearby stream. He knelt down and selected 5 smooth stones. He placed them in his shepherd's bag. Then he picked up his sling. That was all. No sword, no shield, no armor, just 5 stones and faith. To everyone watching, it looked ridiculous. But God often works through what the world considers weak. Chapter 10. Face to face with the giant. When Goliath saw David approaching, he laughed. Was this a joke? A shepherd boy? No armor? No sword? Goliath mocked him. He insulted him. He cursed him. "Come here," the giant shouted. "I will feed your flesh to the birds." But David was not intimidated. His confidence wasn't in himself. His confidence was in God. Chapter 11. David's declaration. David stood before the giant and spoke words that would be remembered for thousands of years. "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. The battle belongs to the Lord." The battlefield fell silent. Everyone listened. Everyone watched. History was about to be made. Chapter 12. The stone that changed history. Goliath moved forward. David ran toward him. Quickly, David reached into his bag. He pulled out a stone, placed it in the sling, spun it around, released. The stone flew through the air, straight toward the giant. It struck Goliath in the forehead. The giant stumbled. Then he fell face first to the ground. The earth shook beneath him. The giant was down. Chapter 13. Victory. The Philistine army stood frozen. They couldn't believe what they had seen. Their champion had fallen. Their giant had been defeated. David ran forward, took Goliath's sword, and secured the victory. The Philistines fled. The Israelites charged forward with courage and confidence. What 40 days of fear could not accomplish, one act of faith achieved in a moment. Chapter 14. How this points to Jesus. For Christians, this story is more than a battle between a boy and a giant. It points forward to Jesus Christ. David fought on behalf of Israel. Jesus fought on behalf of humanity. David defeated a giant enemy. Jesus defeated sin and death. David's victory brought freedom to his people. Jesus' victory brings salvation and hope to the world. Just as David stood between his people and destruction, Jesus stood between humanity and eternal separation from God. That is why Christians see David as a picture of the Savior who would come centuries later. Final lesson. Everyone faces a Goliath. For some it's fear. For others it's failure. For others it's addiction, depression, loss, or uncertainty. The lesson of David and Goliath is not that you are strong enough. The lesson is that God is greater than whatever stands against you. When others see an impossible situation, faith sees an opportunity. When others focus on the giant, faith focuses on God. And sometimes all it takes is one step of courage, one act of faith, and one stone in the right place to change everything. Because giants may look powerful, but faith in God is stronger.